Host Sean Lennon with the Fightlete Report, and I am here to talk about my prediction for the boxing fight of the century. No, not really. Jake Paul versus Ben Askren. And, there's not much I could tell about Jake Paul, from what we've seen so far. He fought Nate Robinson, who really, I felt like that was a complete mismatch. I felt like Nate Robinson should not have been in the ring with Jake Paul for that fight. I understand it was a big payday, a lot of exposure for both guys. But Jake Paul is a YouTuber, but he has some boxing credibility, some skills. And for Nate Robinson taking him on in his first fight, I didn't see it. I saw it as a complete mismatch. Now let's talk about this fight. Funky Ben Askren, former one championship welterweight champion as well. So, that says something for himself, but you got to keep in mind that Ben Askren is a wrestler, and what he does very well is wrestle opponents down the ground and pound them, but stand up is not his forte. One thing I can tell you guys is talking to Duke Rufus, the head coach of Rufus Sport, personally talking to him, I was told by Duke, Ben Askren is one of the toughest guys he's ever seen in the gym, training, wrestling. He said that if Ben Askren got hurt, it doesn't matter what it is. He'd stitch it up and get back onto the mats. And he has that toughness, that endurance. And I feel like this will make a case for him to win this fight against Jake Paul. Jake Paul has had more boxing fights, obviously, but the amount of fights that Funky Ben Askren has had is way more. These two love to talk trash, has been going down for the past few months, as we've seen. And, this is one of those fights. It's a freak show fight, let's just say. My prediction is Funky Ben Askren's going to win this fight by endurance. I think he's going to tire out. I think he's going to look to clinch. He can't go for the takedown. He can't get go for the old double leg, but he's gonna clinch when possible, get close. We're on Jake Paul. For Jake Paul, I think he's got to keep that distance, keep him away, keep that jab going repeatedly. It's anybody's fight. I'm just saying that's one straight way I see this fight going down is by as Funky Ben Askren. And Ben Askren has sparred with some tough dudes. He's sparred with Anthony Pettis probably. He sparred with Tyron Woodley. So I would say he's gotten sparring rounds before, but sparring rounds and a real fight, these are two different things. Ben Askren by decision, man, but it could be close. It could go down to the wire. And Jake Paul showed to me he's very capable of finishing guys.
On one hand, you have Jake Paul. Obviously, he's a very unlikable figure. He's got kind of a wacky personality and is there to make headlines. I mean, he says outrageous stuff. So people like me talk about him. I think that's the entire shtick of what he's doing. But I also think that he's going to be very underestimated going into this by a lot of people. Mostly because it's easy to clown on the guy. He says outrageous stuff. He's very divisive. But if he's actually putting in as much work as him and his team and some other people, around the space have said he is, he could be a problem. On the other hand, you have Ben Askren. It's an interesting pick because, of course, Jake's trying to prove himself as a boxer, not a YouTuber. But he picks a guy who is one of the best wrestlers in the world. I mean, Ben Askren is an Olympian. He's a world champion, a former world champion for a number of organizations. So, of course, let's prove myself with the combat sports athlete, but let's not pick a boxer. So that's an interesting aspect of this, but I do think Ben has been in some wars. I mean, he got beat by Robbie Lawler and somehow weathered the storm and got the win. I mean, he's been through some tough stuff where Jake Paul, we haven't seen anything tough out of him. I mean, he beat Nate Robinson, who had no business being in the ring at all. So I think it'll be interesting to see how Jake's cardio does, and I think Ben's cardio is going to be top notch. I know he's been training with Freddie Roach, and he had some very high praise about his cardio and about his output So I think we're gonna see really early flurries from Jake. I think Ben's chin is going to hold up pretty well, and then kind of drag him and clinch him into the later rounds, and then get a win. So I have uh, Ben Askren getting the win. I think just because, I mean, he's tested. Obviously, he's a little older now. He's gotten some losses, but he's had to go to war, and that's just something that Jake Paul hasn't had to do yet, and this could be that for him. I think, there is a possibility that he could outbox Ben. I don't think that's that crazy, but Ben is proven in the combat sports world enough to where I think he'll be able to get it done. I know even Ben's an underdog right now, which is kind of crazy. So I think he's hovering around plus 130 or so. I would definitely take that bet. I think I have Ben Askren over Jake Paul this Saturday night.
Jake Paul fighting Ben Askren is probably one of the more unusual fights that have been made in boxing in recent years. Ben Askren is probably one of the best MMA wrestlers inside the UFC and inside of all of MMA, including one championship and Bellator and so on. But we all can agree he's not the best striker, and we've seen that countless times. And in this most recent UFC outing, the striking performance against Damian Maia was not impressive. However, Jake Paul on the other side of the ring brings athleticism and a different type of skill set. Even though he's not a legit pro boxer, because he's only fought guys like Nate Robinson and another celebrity to establish who he is even further, he is more athletic than Ben Askren inside the squared ring. However, we don't know what type of fighter he is yet. We know the type of fighter Ben Askren is. Ben Askren has fought the very best inside of the MMA world, but there's no takedowns in boxing. And that's the one reason I'm going to choose against Ben Askren and go with Jake Paul. He's more athletic. He seems more dedicated to the sport. Well, not more dedicated, but he seems dedicated enough to beat Ben Askren. So I have to go with the controversial YouTuber on this night.